Amazing. Awesome. Oh, we've got someone else joining. Amazing. I'll let them in.
Oh, here comes trouble.
Thanks for jumping in, Ryan. Apologies. We have had some technical difficulties. And to anyone else that is listening to this, thank you so much. If you do jump on the Zoom link or that you are watching this back, LinkedIn Live and YouTube and Riverside decided to fail on me at the last minute. I wanted to first thank you, Rob, for joining me today and joining me for the first segment. Obviously, it's always going to go wrong on the first one,
Yes.
as to how we can create better business experiences. And this is a topic that is really passionate to me, just because I know that we never intended to start business and have all the issues that we end up having, all the challenges. And there are always things that we can do to help ourselves improve those. And that is what I've brought you on today. So for anyone that doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do.
So I'm Rob. I'm based on the East Coast, UK. I'm an ex-agency owner as of maybe 3 months ago, exited the agency. We used to do marketing and funnels and media buying and things for clients all over the globe. But I also work as an ops consultant. Real potted history. I kicked off my career in 97, worked a lot of northern British agencies doing lots and lots of different roles, and ended up doing a lot of studio management, production management, COO type stuff, moving around all sorts of agencies, helping them out with delivering stuff and keeping clients happy and getting results and being profitable. I did an 8-year stint as a PMO at Aviva, helping them with all their digital strategy, and it frazzled me. Corporate burnout grabbed me by the throat and spat me out. So I ended up running my own agency, and as I say, working as an ops consultant. And I work full-time as an ops consultant, working with other agency owners, founders, leadership teams to help them, as the kind of headline suggests, to create amazing experiences for their customers and become profitable through creativity.
Yeah. And what would you say for agencies at the moment? What are one of the biggest clues that creativity is a problem that they're struggling with, or there's a real friction between creativity and profitability?
The creativity profitability thing is pretty much causally linked. The clues that you could look for as a leader, a head of department, director, founder, whatever, is typically when your team has those water cooler or coffee moments where they're really excited about the stuff they're doing this weekend, or they're talking about the stuff they're going to do tomorrow evening, or what's been on the TV, or what books they're reading, or whatever. And then when you start talking to them about the actual work that they're assigned to, they go flat. They just feel like they're clocking in and clocking out. That tends to be a dead giveaway that you've got problems with creativity and passion and culture within the agency. And typically what that means, and why I think there's that causal link between creativity and profitability, is you know what it's like when you are faced with a piece of work that you just can't find your rhythm, you can't find the flow. The difference when you, it's a woo-woo word, but when you are in that state of flow, is time just zooms by and you're completely absorbed by what you're doing and you're completely in the moment, and whatever it is that you're producing or creating is very, very high quality. The issue is when you are producing something, whether you're a developer or an IT person or a designer or a project manager or whatever within the agency, when you're doing something that has a lot of friction, you tend to find that what you actually produce, if you look back at it the next day in a better state of mind, is not particularly of high quality.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's not particularly valuable. And therefore, by proxy, it's not going to be that profitable. You can stick a team into a very high pressure, high paced, quick turnaround environment. And what you'll often find is the quality of the work deteriorates. And when it deteriorates, two things happen. You end up damaging your reputation as an agency, and potentially you end up damaging the opportunity to work with that client again, because they're not happy with the results that you've actually created. So being in that creative space, having that space to breathe and to think about a problem and come up with a creative solution is a really, really important part of any agency's delivery process.
Yeah. And you mentioned something when we spoke the other day about personalities. Like, how does personalities affect that creative problem solving, but also how agencies find creative solutions within delivery?
You think about it, an agency is a service-based business. It's effectively, in some way, in a very simplified way, it's exchanging time for money, fundamentally. And its strength comes from the collective strength of its team, its ability to look at a problem and query whether that problem is actually the real problem. You know, in that consulting, guys, you are quite often doing the 5 whys, or you're drilling into something to try and find out what the client really needs, so that you can then take it away and get the team together and come up with ideas. If you have very strong personalities and people that try to rule the roost, or people that don't necessarily listen to all the points of view of the whole team, you could be missing a really, really good way of solving the problem. So quite often what you'll find with personalities and agencies, and it depends by department as well. I think departments classically have stereotyped personalities attached to them. Account managers are very different to project managers, very different to developers, for example. Everybody knows this, everybody feels it. It's just the way that things are. But if you have a lot of clashing personalities in that team mix, you can actually end up just being driven by emotion and driven by ego, rather than driven by the very reason that you exist as an agency, which is to serve the client, to come up with a great solution. So you've got to work out with the agency how you can identify those personalities that create the friction, or those personalities that don't allow the team to actually express their opinion and air their points of view, and create some kind of leveling, so that you can get everybody together and you can actually come up with a solution that's going to be really solid. And also, importantly, that everybody feels empowered and bought into, rather than just told what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I mean, that's super important. I mean, that when personalities start to clash, there is this almost, and I've seen it so many times, this shouting over. There's one person that doesn't get their idea across, but it actually could be the idea that is detrimental to the quality of the outcome. But also there's just, it ends up being a bit of almost a courtroom drama of conversations in one meeting room. And it leads me really nicely onto my question, is like, how can different team members actually get buy-in from either senior leadership or other team members to support that outcome or that delivery for their idea, if that's not something and they are dealing with a slightly stronger personality than themselves?
I think it's ultimately the responsibility of the leader to actually set that pace and set that environment up through example, more than anything else. I know certainly from my corporate days that when it comes to moving up the ladder of the kind of leadership structure up into, you know, executive directorships and things, from heads of department all the way through, that the pressure seems to ratchet up. There is an expectation that you should behave a certain way and that the team members just do what they are told to do. And it creates a lot of problems. I think it's really important that the leadership team actually set the pace and set the tone and create an environment, as I say, a breathing space where it's okay for everybody to talk honestly and candidly, either about their experiences of working in the agency or where they want to go in their careers or any of those kind of things, but also most importantly for the client, around ideas to solve a client's problems. And I've seen this before, an example of that is you get a developer that's really quiet and really shy, and you know, you're in a big meeting, there's maybe 10 people, all the subject matter experts sat around a table talking about a brief and coming up with some shaping or discovery, and, you know, starting to put estimates and a proposal together for a piece of work. And the developer sat there really quiet and really shy, and nobody pays attention to him or her. And then I kind of wander over afterwards and have a chat with them while they're making a coffee, and it's like, oh yeah, we could have done it like that. And I'm like, that's it. That's how we should have done it.
Mm.
And unfortunately, it's down to whoever was running the agenda, whoever was owning that session, and to an extent, the leadership team, to actually create an environment where the guy, all right, he might have been shy, he might have struggled with opening up in front of people, but to systematically create an environment where he's like, maybe we could do it this way. If he'd have said that in the session, the outcome for the client would have been very, very different. So it's really important that everybody maintains that mindset of we are a team, and make sure that everybody has the opportunity to say something. And if it's fairly obvious that someone's wanting to say something but hasn't, try and very gently bring it out of them and get them involved, because then it is the collective power of the team that's created the solution.
And if you're speaking to a leader, what would you be saying to them in that scenario as to, I would recommend these are some tactics that you can use, or this is what you need to go back and look at in order to make sure that your team are working that effectively?
I think the important thing comes down, I mean, just kind of mechanical and tactical things like the structure of the agenda of a meeting. What is it for? What are we expected to discuss? How are we going to pace it? How are we going to make sure we don't run out of time? What are our definite outcomes? What do we want the outcomes to be? Is it everybody needs to go away and do some homework? Is it we want to produce a document on the fly as a draft? Is it we want to fill a whiteboard full of ideas? Are we going to sketch some stuff out? Whatever that needs to be. But within that framework, to make sure that everybody has the opportunity, whether they choose to take it or not, but everybody has the opportunity to actually say the thing that they want to say. Whoever's running the session needs to take responsibility for effectively, a little like you're doing now, for hosting rather than managing the agenda. Don't bulldoze people. Let them actually have the chance to say what they need to say. Obviously, as the host, you're responsible for keeping an eye on time. That's down to the structure of the meeting itself. But as leaders, I think it's important to make sure that you make it really clear how to run a meeting and how to get team buy-in and how to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to say what they need to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, it almost sounds like there's a lack of, maybe not a lack of skills management, like a lack of skill in leadership teams, but it's almost de-skilling leadership teams to actually remind themselves of when they were on the ground, how they felt in that situation, and actually bringing people back together. It takes me back to when I was a snowboard instructor, actually getting everyone to work together when you approach a really steep slope. And you've got to get the person that's most nervous down the mountain in a way so that they're not terrified. And you're looking at the outcome. The outcome is that everyone gets down safely, and you've got to manage the group, but you've got to encourage the group and make sure that everyone gets the best out of it. And I think often, and like you were saying, agencies, leadership teams often forget that, or the leader of that session, whoever that might be, often forgets that and just focuses on their role versus what is that end delivery, what is that end output.
Yeah, and examples that I see over and over again over the years. Agencies are not special. They're all roughly the same. None of us are special. We're all roughly, the same. We've got the same things that make us tick. We've all got souls, we've all got spirits. We all want to be creative. We all want to be heard. We all want to share. That's how we are as humans. I think the challenge comes predominantly when you get somebody who is leading, in inverted commas, with their own agenda. And by that, I mean, they want to peacock a little bit, or they want to flex their egos, or they want to show that they're in control. And a lot of that comes down to emotional intelligence and emotional awareness of self. With that out of the way, you suddenly realize that you're now with a group of people that are incredibly skilled at what they do and collectively can be incredibly powerful. But if you go into a session as, say, a senior project manager running an agenda to do some discovery and put a proposal together, and you start dictating what the solution should be, or you start dictating what the estimates and the cost should be, or what the timescale should be, you're effectively chopping the legs out from underneath the people that will actually tell you what that should be. You're dictating the outcomes of the project itself. And actually, as an ex-studio manager, you're setting me up for a fall, because I will take that and book it in, but I will have this horrible gut instinct that it's going to overrun and eat all its margins, because it's not been, that plan has not been collectively created by the whole team. It's been created by a person that's tried to manipulate and control the situation, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, how can a founder or like a leadership team member or a project manager get the team excited about a project, a client problem or a solution that they're possibly going to create? How can they bring everybody together? Like, what are some ideas that you've seen work really well in the past for agencies?
Well, probably the most important thing actually comes down to your allocation and utilization rates. You have to give people breathing space. This cannot be something that's sandwiched into a 15-minute session between a developer doing a whole load of stuff here and then a whole load of team meetings over there, and everything's running late and all that. They won't be thinking straight. They won't be in solution mode. They won't be thinking about a thing in front of them. They're thinking about that stuff that they've left on their ClickUp list, and they're thinking about that stuff that's facing them tomorrow, and they're just like running crazy. So I think the first thing that's really important is actually to create a good, solid slug of time for these people to get together and almost come into the meeting room and stretch and relax and chat to each other a little. And then the person that's running it is coming in with whatever information they've got from the client. You know, it might be a brief, it could be a whole load of questions that have been answered or whatever, and actually lay it down on the table and start the process of saying, look, we're really excited about this stuff. It's either a new client or it's an upsell to an existing client. We've got an opportunity to do a really fantastic job, and I think it'll be really, really fun to do it. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be great. Let's actually talk through the details of what it is that the client is after from a kind of BA business strategy point of view, and also from a technical or design point of view. These are the things within our service or product range that we need to be mindful of. Let's open up the conversation. Where would you start? You know, you need to create empowering questions that basically give it to the rest of the team. And then you, as the host, you sit back for 5 or 10 minutes and let the guys actually talk through the basic problem. Ideally, you've given them some information in advance. And again, back to utilization, they've had a chance to do their homework. They've read the document yesterday, so they've a good idea that their own ideas that they're actually bringing to the table. And then it's for you really just to facilitate bringing the ideas together and assembling it into some kind of straw man proposal that you can use to, you know, have your account management team go and chat again with the client and say, this is what we think our approach should be, timeline, cost, blah, blah, blah.
And it sounds so simple when you put it that way in reality. And it's often so complicated when it comes to actually implementing this within agencies. I mean, ops and creativity and problem solving don't necessarily go hand in hand. And is there something that agencies can do to make that process simpler? Or what processes should they be thinking about when it comes to actually like enabling creativity in
it's an interesting one, and obviously, you know, you and I are connected in various communities, and there may be other people, Brian included, that are involved in that operation space when it comes to working with agencies, either as consultants or in-house ops. We all know that 10% is process, 90% is people. Because you're a service-based business built with humans. I know that AI is another question mark, and that's a story for a whole other day, but fundamentally you're dealing with people, and the important thing is to create the frameworks to facilitate people working together. Ultimately, that's what operations is about. There are various outcomes and KPIs around, you know, financials and org and growth and scaling and whatever you want. There are various bits within the agency that ops touch on, but fundamentally it's about creating a framework to facilitate people to work together. So I think the important thing is having that framework, and then the leadership team constantly instilling into whoever it is that's looking after facilitating sessions or running projects or whatever, to not allow their preconceptions and their egos and their own idea of control to get in the way of potentially a really good idea by simply being too egotistical, being too controlling, and stamping that idea out before it's even been born. It's a really, really hard thing to do, but actually, when you think about it, it's a really simple thing to do at the same time. Just don't get in your own way. Work out how to bind a team together. Because the interesting thing, when I look at failures in agencies, when it comes to delivering things, typically the failures and the things that I mentioned before about this idea of, you talk about people talking about a weekend and then they talk about their actual thing that they're working on and they go flat as a pancake. It's because they're not empowered. They don't feel involved. They just feel like they're given a task and they just have to pick it up and mechanically work through it. Now, if that same person was involved in a really empowering session to come up with the solution with their peers and various other people from other departments, and then 3 months later, when it's commissioned, it's then booked in, and there's a huddle that gets together and it just refreshes everybody on what the solution was going to be, suddenly that person's take on that task that they're going to get started is completely different, because it's like, I was part of shaping that. I know exactly why we came up with that solution, and I know exactly what I need to do to get it done, and I really feel involved, because it's not just that somebody else has designed this thing for me. I was actually part of that design process.
Yeah. And that, I think it's the simple things that you can do to make the biggest difference when it comes to actually getting teams to work together on delivery and supporting with an absolutely outstanding outcome. I mean, the fundamentals of the business experience. So for the founder and for the leadership teams and for the team members, what does the real essence behind the business, the core of the business, does that have anything to do with this? Or would you say that it's more so within the day-to-day of how they operate?
I think it comes down to culture as well. And I know that's a very difficult one for any business to really wrap its head around. If you think about whether it's remote or whether it's, in a building, that idea of people congregating, ultimately that's culture, and it can go a million different ways depending on how people behave within that space, how they feel within that space, how they perform within that space. So I think it's really important that the kind of backdrop of all of this is to have a really good, positive, open culture. And when I say agency culture, I don't mean the thing that most people instantly jump on, which is, oh, there's a foosball table and it's a funky color and it's got a cool big screen over there and we've got some bean bags on the floor over there. And like, we have bacon butties and we have massages on a Friday afternoon. They're all just weird little perks. They're just environmental things. Ultimately, the culture's got to be about how do we actually regularly get our heads together to come up with really, really good solutions that the team buys into, that they produce beautifully, on time, on quality, and therefore, by proxy, and this is where the Opsy people and the finance people and the founders are all happy, the margin's really good, so the profitability is really good.
Yeah. And I guess in essence, the clients are really happy because the product's great.
Yeah, I mean, the worst case, and it happens all the time with agencies, is you overrun on the project, client starts getting really difficult, account management's back starts getting up, project managers get a beating, the team gets a beating, and all the time, especially if you're on a fixed budget and you haven't got wriggle room to negotiate, scope change, effectively it's you that are delivering badly. It's not the clients expecting or change the scope at all. You're eating into a kind of studio management, air traffic control. You're eating into the next project that's lined up, and or you're eating into the margin to a point where if you're not careful, you'll actually go negative. And fundamentally, that's when the founders are reaching in their back pocket and paying for the privilege of delivering a project, which is crazy. You can't run a business like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think I'm aware of time, so if I will give you my last question is, if an agency owner is watching this right now and they struggling with profitability, teams are having friction points, and they are not really quite getting the quality of the output that they're looking for, and it's starting to impact their reputation, to turn passion to profit, what is something that an agency founder or a leadership, like a member of the leadership team, can take away with right now on your biggest piece of advice to start making a change?
Look at where your priorities really are. You know, if you have to draw out the matrix of priorities, then do so, but work out where you are wasting time. And by that, I mean meetings that don't need to exist, or development cycles, or, you know, service delivery that's over-egged. Look at where, effectively, what you're looking at doing is, where can you slow down? It's a really, really hard thing to ask an agency founder to slow down. But to get this right, that's exactly what you have to do. To slow down, you have to buy time. To buy time, you need to look at where you're spending time. Spending time is about priorities. So are you actually doing all the right things, or are you doing it because you've got into the weird cultural habit of being busy and thinking that that's important? And I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but it's true. All of us like to think that being busy means that we're doing well, but actually it's good sometimes to slow down and have the time to think about problems and come up with good solutions.
Yeah, no, and that's huge. I mean, we always, especially coming into Q4, time is something that seems to be slipping away quicker and quicker for agencies. So being able to find that, especially during this period, is something that's absolutely crucial. Thank you so much, Rob,
Pleasure.
for all your insights. And thank you so much to the guys that joined us live, and to all of you that are watching this on YouTube. And if you do have any questions, drop them for you guys here, drop them in the chat box. For anyone else, drop them in the chat of this. And I know that Rob and myself will be there to filter these. So I will give a couple of seconds just in case there's any immediate ones that come through. And we can answer those now. If not, I will finish this off so we can get this uploaded immediately.
Yeah, cool.
See if there's anything that comes through in the chat.
Okay.
So not specifically on this, I'll read this one out. So not specific, but what are you doing now, Rob? So how can people get in touch with you, one, and what are you up to, so that if anyone needs to know, that they can find out how to work with you?
Yeah, so just hit robsayles.com, SAYLES.com, or Google me. There's a calendar on there. So if you want to book a chat, I'm not selling anything. There is no lead magnet. There is no funnel. There used to be with the agency. There is not with me. To answer your question, Nikki, I'm working full-time as a consultant. So I do this kind of stuff with agency owners. I work in two ways. I either helicopter in to actually roll the virtual sleeves up and do the operational stuff, or I work as a pure consultant remotely, which is much more about setting a framework of excellence for founders and leadership teams. So they kind of do a bit of the heavy lifting, and we have accountability sessions and a framework for delivering. But yeah, I realized that I was stretching myself way too thin running an agency and trying to be a consultant at the same time. So I opted to go for my passion, which is the consulting stuff, and exited the agency.
Amazing. Thank you, Rob. And thank you guys for joining. And thank you, Nikki, for your question, and anyone else that drops anything in any of the comments. And I look forward to chatting with you soon. And I hope that next time we do this, we have some great technical streamlining. For an ops person, this is tearing me apart.
It's fine. We got there, and all right, it's a little bit old school, but it works.
Always. Thank you so much, Rob.
Cool. Have a good day. Take care.